chance encounter, a mistaken identity, and a spark that could set the whole city ablaze. Get ready to feel the heat, because this meet cute is about to turn into a meet hot. Chapter 3. A Twist of Fate. The Cantina Carioca buzzed with the usual late afternoon crowd. Tourists seeking refuge from the heat. Locals catching up over cold beers. Camila glanced at the clock, a spark of excitement igniting in her chest. Just 15 more minutes, and she'd be free to dash off to her art class. Her portfolio, stuffed with her latest works, waited behind the bar. Tonight was critique night, and despite her nerves, Camila couldn't wait to get feedback on her new series.
Almost there.
Julio, her coworker, said with a wink as he passed.
Big plans tonight?
Camila nodded, unable to keep the smile from her face.
Art class. I think I finally nailed that perspective technique we've been working on.
That's my girl.
Julio grinned.
You'll be famous one day, mark my words.
Camila rolled her eyes, but her smile widened. Julio's unwavering support had been a lifeline on her toughest days. As the minute hand ticked closer to freedom, Camila began her end-of-shift routine. She'd just retrieved her portfolio from behind the bar, when Julio's voice cut through the din.
Cammy, wait!
He gestured frantically from across the room.
2 businessmen just came in. Table 12. Probably want caipirinhas. Can you take them before you go?
Camila bit back a sigh. So close. But bills needed paying, and every tip counted.
Sure thing.
She called back, tucking her portfolio under her arm. No time to stash it away again. As she turned towards table 12, her eyes landed on the newcomers, and her breath caught. The men stood out like jaguars in a flock of parrots. Crisp suits, serious expressions, exuding an aura of wealth and power that seemed at odds with the laid-back cantina. The taller of the 2 men scanned the room, his steel-gray eyes sharp and assessing. For a moment, they locked with Camila's, and she felt a jolt of something. Recognition? Curiosity? Before she could process it, he looked away, following his companion to a table in the corner. Camila shook her head, trying to focus. Just another customer, she told herself, nothing more. Get through this, and then it's off to class. As she approached their table, portfolio tucked under her arm, she overheard snippets of their conversation.
But need to be more careful, Sergey. That painting is irreplaceable.
Of course, Mr. Volkov. I assure you it's perfectly safe in this portfolio.
Camila's steps faltered. Volkov? The name tickled something in her memory. Wasn't there a famous art collector? Lost in thought, she didn't notice Sergey rising from his seat until it was too late. They collided, a tangle of limbs and startled exclamations. Camila's portfolio went flying, as did the one Sergey had been clutching.
I'm so sorry.
Camila gasped, scrambling to gather the scattered papers.
Are you all right?
Sergey muttered something in what sounded like Russian, snatching up the nearest portfolio.
Fine,
He said brusquely.
just watch where you're going next time.
With that, he hurried off, presumably to the restroom. Camila gathered the remaining portfolio, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Great. Just great. As if she needed to give her boss another reason to fire her. It wasn't until she returned to the bar that she noticed something odd. The portfolio in her hands wasn't her battered old one. This was sleek, expensive leather with the monogram MV embossed in gold. Her stomach dropped. MV. Maxim Volkov. The painting. Oh no. Oh no. Camila's mind raced. She had to switch them back before anyone noticed. But how? She glanced at the corner table where the gray-eyed man, Volkov, sat alone perusing the menu. Taking a deep breath, Camila smoothed her apron and approached the table, the monogrammed portfolio hidden behind her back.
Good afternoon, sir. Are you ready to order?
Volkov looked up, and Camila felt that same jolt as before. Up close, his eyes were even more striking, the color of a storm-tossed sea.
Just a mineral water for now,
he said, his accent sending an unexpected shiver down her spine. Camila nodded, her heart pounding.
Of course, right away.
As she turned to leave, she accidentally bumped the table, causing Volkov's menu to fall.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She exclaimed, bending down to retrieve it. This was her chance. She reached for her old portfolio, which was sitting next to Volkov's chair. Just as her fingers grazed the worn leather, Volkov shifted in his seat, his leg blocking her access.
Allow me.
He said smoothly, picking up the menu himself. Their eyes met, and Camila could have sworn she saw a flicker of amusement in those gray depths.
Thank you.
She stammered, straightening up.
I'll be right back with your water.
Camila retreated to the bar, her cheeks burning. Smooth, Santos. Real smooth. But she couldn't give up. The longer she held on to that expensive portfolio, the more likely someone would notice. She had to try again. Grabbing a glass of water, she made her way back to Volkov's table. This time, she had a plan. As she approached, she pretended to trip, allowing some water to splash onto the table, and conveniently close to where her portfolio sat.
Oh, no.
She gasped, grabbing a napkin.
I'm so sorry, sir. Let me clean that up right away.
As she dabbed at the spill, she inched closer to the portfolios, just a little further. In her determination to reach the portfolios, Camila didn't notice how precariously she was balanced. Her fingers had just closed around the handle of her old portfolio when she lost her footing entirely. Time seemed to slow as she fell, her eyes widening in horror. The world tilted, and suddenly she found herself sprawled across Maxim Volkov's lap, her face mere inches from his. For a moment, the world stood still. Camila found herself staring into those storm-gray eyes, close enough to see flecks of blue within them. She felt the solid warmth of his chest, smelled a hint of expensive cologne. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure he must hear it.
I'm so sorry.
She stammered, heat flooding her cheeks.
I didn't mean to.
It's quite all right.
Volkov said, his voice a low rumble that she felt as much as heard. There was definitely amusement in his tone now.
Though I usually prefer to know a woman's name before we get quite this intimate.
Camila scrambled to her feet, mortification warring with a completely inappropriate urge to laugh.
Camila.
She managed.
Camila Santos. And you're Maxim Volkov.
One elegant eyebrow arched.
You seem to have me at a disadvantage, Miss Santos. Although I must say, your service here is rather hands-on.
Before Camila could respond, Sergei returned, his eyes widening at the scene before him.
Mr. Volkov, is everything all right?
Maxim's lips quirked in what was definitely a smile now.
Perfectly fine, Sergei. Miss Santos was just demonstrating the local hospitality.
He reached for the portfolio on the table, then paused, looking at Camila with a glint in his eye.
Though I believe this one might belong to you, Camila.
He held up her battered portfolio, his long fingers tracing the worn edges. Camilla's heart leapt into her throat.
Yes, that's mine. I can explain.
But Maxim wasn't listening. His eyes had narrowed, focusing on something peeking out from the portfolio's edge.
What's this?
He murmured, more to himself than to her. Before Camila could stop him, Maxim had flipped open the portfolio. Her protest died on her lips as she watched his expression change. The amusement in his eyes gave way to something else. Surprise, then intense concentration.
These are...
Maxim trailed off, his fingers hovering reverently over her sketches. He flipped through the pages, each turn revealing a new piece of Camilla's soul laid bare on paper. Camila held her breath. She'd never seen anyone look at her art quite like this before. Maxim Volkov, renowned art collector, was studying her work as if it were a priceless masterpiece. Finally, he looked up, his storm-gray eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her shiver.
Miss Santos,
He said, his voice low and serious.
these are extraordinary.
Camila blinked, sure she had misheard.
What?
Your use of color, the emotion in every stroke.
Maxim shook his head as if clearing it.
Who represents you? I very much like to speak with your gallery.
A bitter laugh escaped Camilla's lips before she could stop it.
My gallery? The only gallery showing my work is the wall of my tiny apartment.
Maxim's brow furrowed.
That's impossible. Work of this caliber.
He broke off, studying her face.
You're serious.
Camila nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The way Maxim was looking at her, not just at her body, but really seeing her, made her feel more exposed than any state of undress ever could. Maxim stood, closing the portfolio with a reverence that made Camilla's heart ache. He handed it back to her, their fingers brushing. That same electric jolt passed between them, but this time, neither pulled away.
Camila Santos,
Maxim said, his accent caressing her name in a way that made her knees weak.
I think we have a great deal to discuss. Perhaps over dinner?
Camilla's jaw dropped.
Dinner? With you? But I'm just a...
An incredibly talented artist who has been woefully overlooked.
Maxim finished for her. His lips curved into a smile that transformed his entire face, making him look younger, almost boyish.
And I, as it happens, am in a position to remedy that oversight. If you're willing, of course.
Camilla clutched her portfolio to her chest, her mind whirling. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen to girls like her. And yet,
Yes,
she heard herself say, as if from a great distance.
I'd like that.
Maxim's smile widened, and Camilla felt as though the sun had just broken through a lifetime of clouds.
Excellent. I'll make the arrangements. And Camilla,
Yes?
try not to fall for any other art collectors between now and then. I'd hate to have competition.
As Camilla watched Maxim leave, her heart pounding and her skin tingling where he had touched her, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a dramatic turn. For better or worse remained to be seen, but one thing was certain. She'd never look at a portfolio the same way again. And maybe, just maybe, someone was finally seeing her the way she'd always longed to be seen.